Despite being painfully boring to watch without cuts, a crude voiceover, or poor editing, Super Godzilla still stands up as a fun and nostalgic game to play. You can sit down and play through the entire game in a day, and some of the music, fights, and monster animations will stick in your brain meat forever like a fine dusting of microplastics. In fact, my favorite kaiju design is featured in this game, and only this game, because the only iteration of him that was made into a suit was scrapped. I'm going to give you a little background on the game, and we'll jump right into playing it. Super Godzilla was released in Japan in 1993 under the title Cho Godzilla. Cho can translate to mean to jump over, to leap over, to cross over, to transcend, to exceed, to overtake, surpass. In this case, that's the context used for Super Godzilla's Japanese title. The game's instruction manual mentions that the kanji character is read as Cho, but the book Godzilla 1954 to 1999, Super Complete Works, instead indicates that it is read as Supa. So maybe there's some drama or tea in the community somewhere that I can dig up outside of whether or not liking Zilla is equal to liking Jar Jar Binks in the Star Wars fandom. Although, isn't there something about him being a Sith? Anyway, I don't know, whatever. Back to the stuff that I actually know about. At the time, there were a lot of games coming out with Super or Supa in the title. According to Backlogs.com, I found 163 different games. So there was stuff like Super Mario Bros., Super Contra, Super Shadow of the Beast, which sounds crazy, and I really love the names that were coming up for games at this time. Alright, so the game starts you off with a little bit of dialogue from some super fancy scientists in Japan. The year is 1990-something, it's literally 1990X, and aliens are invading Earth, threatening all life. A small group of people have decided to use a transmitter to control Godzilla against his will and use his body to fight aliens and other kaiju. It's very early 90s, and it's complete disregard for bodily autonomy. The first city we're dispatching our new pal to deal with is Osaka. King Ghidorah is busy tap dancing around the critical infrastructure of Osaka Castle, and Godzilla has to cross the city without destroying too many buildings as quickly as he can, while also making sure to stop along the way for sightseeing, shopping, a quick drink of nuclear energy to revitalize him halfway through the day, and a quick human jellyfoot scrub. Once we reach King Ghidorah, we're met with a side-scrolling battle scene. We have some new assets for Godzilla as well as King Ghidorah to show their backwards and forwards movement. At the bottom is a white box that will give us move cards, and we can swing our little chicken arms to try and sucker punch the other kaiju. Once we've successfully hit them, we can try and use our energy levels and moving back and forth to get a good move card. The moves range from a dinky tail whip up to a massive nuclear ray blast. King Ghidorah is a bit of a pushover in this form, so it doesn't take long before we pulverize him and he loses his head. The alien snatch his body, tell us about their evil plan. How thoughtful of them to include us in the conversation about our own planet. The next kaiju surfaces, and we're surprised to learn that it's also Godzilla. We'll speed over to the... Oh, it's just this little spaceship I have to kill. Oh, there's another one. Oh my god, stop it. Now that we've made our way over to the foresty mountains, we're being bombarded by these shitty little alien spaceships. Appearing roughly every 5 seconds, the spaceships require a punch and a weak nuclear ray to kill it. You can cheese them if you're like me and have no patience, but they will drain your health significantly. You'll want it for the boss fight, trust me. Once we progress a bit further, we learn that we can locate and kill the mothership to stop the aliens from spawning. We will immediately hunt her down and kill her every single opportunity we get because we hate her and she's the worst. Once she's dead, we do a bit more shopping, we get some girl snacks, and we go take on the new bitch in town. Godzilla as your opponent can be extremely different here depending on which version of the game you're playing. If you're an American, like myself, you'll be faced with a slightly off-color version of Godzilla right up until the first punch. He then sheds his exterior skin and you see Mechagodzilla, the 1974 version, aka the Showa version. For those of you who aren't obsessed with Godzilla, there are several periods of time that the movies were being produced which have wildly different formats and themes. There's the Showa area, which was from about 1954 to 1984, the Heisei area, which is about 1984 to 1995, my personal favorite, the Millennium era, which is 1999 to 2004, the TriStar era, which is just Zilla in 1998 and the subsequent movies and games and shit, the Monsterverse era, which is the 2014 till now Godzilla, the American one with Kong. He's got the big like turtle feet. He's pretty cool looking. And the Reiwa era, which is 2016 till now, which is the Japanese era of Shin Godzilla, Godzilla Minus One. Very evil Godzilla in comparison to the MonsterVerse one. Anyway, back to Super Godzilla. If you're Japanese, you would have been met with the Heisei Mechagodzilla, also known as Mechagodzilla 2, from the 1993 film that had just released in Japan. The studio was concerned that American audiences wouldn't be as interested in a Godzilla game with so few recognizable kaiju from released films at the time, so they swapped Mechagodzillas around depending on the region where the game was released. Both versions of Mechagodzilla fight extremely similarly, in that both of them are the worst. I do not know who playtested this fight, but it has to be the most frustrating on the planet. He just beats you into a corner and mercilessly you over and over. If you use a weak atomic breath, it's reflected back at you by the Heisei Mechagodzilla. The Showa Mechagodzilla will block the attack with his barrier and retaliate with rockets instead. If you're somehow blessed enough to get off a strong atomic breath, it can pierce through the shield of either Mechagodzilla and damage it by quite a lot. I applaud you if you can get this off without throwing your f***ing controller. I fought him twice just for you. After the most frustrating piece of shit PC load letter error in history, we're back in Japan at the Lake Ashino area filled with more alien spaceships, desperately in search of the godforsaken mothership so we can snuff out her fucking life. And we've just learned that our head scientist and researcher has been taken hostage. He's being held at a facility that happens to look exactly like 5 other facilities scattered all around the area, and we don't know which one he's at. And if we go to the wrong one, we get claymored in the face. Meanwhile, we have to tear down key civilian power infrastructure, or else we get electrocuted because our transmitter isn't equipped to tell Godzilla to duck, or to do that crazy high jumping which he canonically can do. Once we finally reach the professor, our life is restored, we're given a health boost, we then go track down and face off with the third boss of the game and one of my all-time favorite kaiju, Biollante. Here's a hot take, and I'm going to upset a lot of Godzilla fans with this one. But Godzilla vs. Biollante is potentially one of the most boring movies in the entire franchise. Absolutely the most boring of the Heisei series, and that is not to say that the story itself or Biollante herself is the worst. The movie is just boring. Anyway, Biollante has her little feelers out in the beginning of the fight, and your test was slapping them away from Godzilla's face over and over. It sucks pretty hard after Mechagodzilla, but I say it's a little easier, deceptively so, I guess, and I still had to stop halfway through one of the fights and go heal myself to finish her off. Biollante does insane damage with her acid attacks, and she can repel Godzilla's body slam attack. You're going to be stuck either in a corner tail whipping her for 45 minutes, trying to avoid pissing mommy off, or you're going to be charging in and hoping that you get lucky enough to do some breath attacks over and over again. You're probably going to be tail whipping at first, but either way, she's a tough broad and it takes a lot to bring her down. Once Biollante is dead and gone, the professor injects some King Ghidorah cells into Godzilla, and somehow that magically just makes him stronger. Kaiju DNA must be extremely flexible or something. I don't know how that works. But with his new steroid injection, Godzilla is set towards a new foe that has been darting around Yokohama, and the city is already on fire. Batra is one of those monsters who stands out as the punk pick for favorite kaiju, and I'm going to elaborate here. Batra is the Gengar pick of the kaiju community. He's sleek, he's cool, he's mean, he's the antithesis of the beautiful heroine Mothra. He also looks like something that came out of the 90s. His wings remind me of the Hot Rod game, like Crossfire. I don't know. Anyway, Batra is laying waste to the carnival ground when Godzilla hits the scene. Batra is incredibly annoying. He's not a hard fight, though. He's just a slog. Kind of like Mechagodzilla and Biollante in every other fight. You can only hit him with the super breath attack, too, so it's the only move that's fast enough to hit him. It also happens to be the most flashy move, where Godzilla gives the most reads to his opponents in his normal form, but Batra must be so mesmerized that he just gets blasted anyway. It takes about 4 of these to knock Batra out. That might seem easy, but that's because this is just the halfway point. It turns out that there's another Batra, only this one's in a cocoon. You can catch him if you're fast enough. There's a sort of tried and true route that you can go through that I remember as a kid. You go down around the solid ground, you avoid taking time in the water because the water drains too much time, and by the time you get there, if you go straight across, Batra is going to hatch from the cocoon. I just didn't feel like fighting him twice, so in both Japanese and the American playthrough, I just went this way, because I didn't want to deal with him 2 times when it was no different at both times. After Batra is destroyed again, we learn that Tokyo is under attack again by Mecha King Ghidorah again. Wait, well, he's mecha now. His middle head, chest, wings, and tails have all been replaced or outfitted with mechanical parts. There's 2 different ways that you can do this fight. I failed both ways to protect all of Tokyo, and honestly it doesn't matter anyway, and you'll see why. The first option you have is deciding whether to collect all of the superpower nodes or going right to Mecha King Ghidorah. In my first playthrough, I grabbed all 3 nodes and then I went to fight him as Super Godzilla for the first time. Super Godzilla is a pretty awesome design, and he might even look familiar to a lot of Godzilla fans, especially to kids who grew up in the 90s. If you don't recognize him, it's okay. But Super Godzilla's design served as the basis for Space Godzilla, as the designer Minoru Yoshida had created Super Godzilla for the game and was the same one tasked with creating Space Godzilla later. Shinichiro Kobayashi, who had previously written the story for Godzilla vs. Biollante, wrote a draft called Godzilla vs. Neo-Godzilla, which proposed the idea of a crystalline Godzilla clone. Concept art for this interpretation of the monster, included in the book Heisei Godzilla Perfection, gives it the name Crystal Godzilla. Some of these designs were radically different from the final design, featuring wings, additional limbs, and other unique features. Another early concept had the monster transform into imitations of Godzilla's previous foes, as well as a duplicate of Godzilla himself. Tokyo was about 75% destroyed when I started the battle. Thanks to being Super Godzilla, it was as easy as a Sunday morning to beat Mecha Godzilla's cheeks. He didn't stand a chance. I got to use all my best moves. Super Godzilla's weird dragon belly button beam, the orange mouth laser, this punch. This is my favorite part about being Super Godzilla, by the way. You can charge his punch and you can zoom across the battlefield to hit your opponent. It is so satisfying when you've been shuffling back and forth playing footsie with the other monsters for hours on end to be able to hone in right in their f***ing faces. Blam! God, it feels so good. If you decide to not pick up the super nodes and go straight for Mecha King Ghidorah, you're in for a frustrating fight. It's not impossible though. I got to him when Tokyo was about 45% the second time around. It's because you have to wind your way through the city and try not to destroy buildings, but there are 8 different areas to go through that are filled with buildings and no real way through them except through them. I'm sure if I sat and studied a map, I could work out the best route, but I don't want to do that right now, and I didn't do it for either of these playthroughs. If you fight Mecha King Ghidorah without the supercells, he's tough, but not impossible. He hits hard, and he's got a lot of punishers to retaliate with. Keep trying to land hits on him when you can, and hopefully you've gathered enough items to refuel when you're down. Either way, killing him again is pretty satisfying. After defeating Mecha King Ghidorah, you're shamed for killing everyone both times. And then the aliens kill everyone anyways, and then destroy all of Tokyo anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And now there's a super ancient god demon from ancient China fused with Godzilla's cells, hatching and destroying the city. Godzilla's knocked out of his super form, and you have to make your way to Bagan through the destroyed city. I gotta take a second here and tell you about Bagan. I want to tell you about my life's obsession with this kaiju. When I was a kid, after playing this game, there were rumors going around that one of the new Mothra movies was going to have a Bagan villain in it. I scoured the early days of the World Wide Web and was able to stumble upon these pictures. I was kind of disappointed because he looked a little goofy compared to what he did in the game. A little bit more like Goldar from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But I was willing to accept him because I love lions, so I was like, sure, this is cool. He's basically like a big lion kaiju now. But then Toho did what they do best, and they scrapped the movie, they scrapped the suit, they scrapped Bagan, he faded away into the ether, becoming the monster that never was, no special place in the kaiju list of my 1998 official Godzilla Compendium, doomed to vanish into the annals of Toho history. Well, once you reach Bagan, you have to let him manhandle you for just a little bit. He needs to slap you around to feel powerful. The giant creature is ruthless. Every time you punch, he punishes you. Every time you let your guard down, he punishes you. Every time you look at him wrong, he punishes you. He's like a seasoned school bully, and he's hungry for the Lunchable, the guy in your locker, because the cafeteria pizza wasn't enough that day for him. It's never enough for him. He's insatiable. After an evening of getting the tar beaten out of you, the Super X shows up and saves the day. Somehow, it wasn't involved in the cataclysmic explosion when Bagan was birthed, and it also was able to find some depots that miraculously survived with the supercells, so Godzilla becomes Super Godzilla, and you get to beat this gigantic horny toad's ass. Honestly, this is a fun fight. Super Godzilla can punish just as hard as Bagan can with the charging punch. If you have any items gathered, you can just start pummeling the shit out of him. You can do belly button blasts, charged mouth beams, tail zappers, body slams, whatever. Just beat the tar out of him and have fun. You do have to play footsie a bit still. He does still punish you very quickly. But by now you should be used to the game and feel that you're unstoppable with the punch. If you're looking for a fun retro Godzilla game that has a special appearance from a kaiju that has no film credits, look no further. Despite the game coming out amongst a slew of other super titles, I think this one has earned its place among some of its better known siblings like Mario and Metroid. The designs for this game directly pave the way for future Godzilla monsters, and even though Bagan will continue to fade into obscurity over time, I'm happy to have been able to beat his ass twice for your viewing pleasure. And with that, Super Godzilla is a wrap. I loved making this video and learning some new things about a game that I've loved for years. Playing through the game twice was not necessarily something I'll do again, but it was cool to see both the original Mechagodzilla and Mechagodzilla 2 in action at the same time. Is there a creature that exists only in a game that you love? Let me know in the comments below. Next time, I want to take a look at a PlayStation 1 game that I don't think you've heard of. It's called Taifu Wrath of the Tiger. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, especially if you like old school games with sick soundtracks, and apparently if you're a furry, because that game is kind of furry-licious. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I love you all, I guess, and I'll see you later. Bye.